This is the TBM 900 in X-Plane 11, and I was excited to learn about this from some YouTube comments when I reviewed the TBM 850 back when I was using Prepared 3D for my primary flight sim. Since then I've moved to X-Plane 11, and this aircraft model is a big reason why. X-Plane 11 itself is way better than it's ever been, but the realism that the company HotStart has been able to achieve with this model has been really impressive, and I've been fortunate enough to help them beta test it and give them various bits of feedback based on my real-world usage of a TBM 900. So you can see from the outside here, the model is gorgeous. It's got this cool silver and black and blue paint scheme here. It's not complete yet. You look at the interior, even from here you can see it's not really modeled out, and the little radar pod on the closest wing here is not done. In fact, the wings aren't done yet, but the main fuselage, the wheels, they don't have their covers yet, but the level of detail is incredible. I've seen some close-in views of these before. Let's see if I can get in here. And they look terrific. They've got all the little latches, all the tiny details on here, looking really good. The hinges, the various intake ports, antenna, cargo doors, pilot door, primary door in the rear there. It's a great looking model. And if we hop back inside, the interior has already received a lot of work on this beta version of the model. So up top we've got all the normal switches, as well as excellent amount of detail here on the interior. For the controls, again, they haven't done any of the seats and panels and so forth in here, but it looks spectacular. So what I thought I would do is record this as a testing session. So they've had some updates recently. I'm going to treat it like I would the real thing, and we'll just take off here out of Aspen. This is a downloadable content I did an add-on for by purchasing it in Steam. It's really pretty, and the terrain around here is really nice looking too. So it's a nice setting, and I'm just going to superimpose the normal checklist I use from ForeFlight on top as we go, and you can see how it goes as we do it. So we'll start with the inside inspection. We'll assume our pre-flight is complete on the outside. I have a couple of extra check items here just for when I'm traveling, setting the home thermostats to away and stuff like that. See if I need to send a text to anybody, let them know I'm departing. The doors closed and locked. That's not really modeled too much yet, but we'll look for the CAS messages. Make sure those are okay. Emergency exit pin, that would be back here, but that's not going to have been modeled yet. So that middle window is the emergency exit, and that's not been done yet. But that's fine, we're just testing the rest. Seat belts, that's fine. Passenger oxygen switch and the pilot oxygen switch are not modeled yet, nor are the masks, so let's skip those. Alright, all lights off. Yes, they're all off right here. Crash lever is down. The starter switch is in the off position. Ignition, we normally leave it auto, so there we go. And then aux BP, fuel selector, and AP trims all down, which is their off position, so down, down, down. And then ELT, which is not modeled, would normally be in the middle position instead of in the test position there. Okay. So we'll go down here. I've hidden the yoke here. It's really nicely modeled, but just in the way a little bit when we're trying to get to these switches. So we look at the micro mass switch. I don't think that one's really been modeled yet. The DI switches, we have those all off, and that's what we want. The inertial separator, we'll have it off. Parking brake, we'll turn that on here. Landing gear controls are down, that's good. Manual override is back. The throttle is in the cutoff position, the flaps are up, and we've got fuel selected on left or right. The AC switch, let's zoom in here. is off. Bleed in the middle is off. Pressure mode's auto where we want it. And we can set the fan speed we're going to want later, and the temperature. And I usually have the hot air control just pointing to our feet. We make sure the dump has not been activated, which that hasn't been modeled out yet. Zoom out again. Let's hide this yoke. The alternate static should be pushed in, as should the emergency ram air, and that's good. And then the essential bus tie should be in the normal position, and all the circuit breakers should be not popped, and that's good. And then I would normally check the fire extinguisher right there, but that's not yet modeled. And same goes for the emergency landing gear valve, which is down here in the floor. It looks like he started the panel here, but that's not quite ready. And passengers are briefed. So we're on to the before start checklist. First thing we do is get the power going. Bring crash bar up, source to battery, generator to main. We got the chocks over here. This is extra features of this model. I'll try to take a quick look at some of that maybe towards the end. Actually, maybe I'll save that. That's pretty detailed. Normally we'd get our ATIS and our startup clearance if we needed it, but we don't. So we got the battery going, got the generator set to main. Let's test the panel lights. That's this little white button here. And that lights up all the little LEDs around the displays.
Aural warning, okay.
And it does the master warning and caution too. So that's nicely modeled. Landing gear lights, we want to check that those are functioning. This is checking another switch that checks the down position. And this is just making all the lights flash so we can see that. It's good. Fuel on board sync.
Pause system test, okay.
I think there would normally be a fuel sync button here, which I'm not finding. Let me see. Okay, I don't think that one's quite modeled out yet on their system page, so I'll file a bug on that one. Let's put the screens on composite mode. This makes them all look the same. In case one screen goes out while we're doing our start, we'll have the exact same information on the screen beside it. We make sure our residual ITT is less than 150, and it is. Our voltage is strong, over 24.5. That looks good. And CAS messages, we want to make sure those make sense. All of these look just fine. Audio alarms, we would test that using the upper panel, but that's not modeled yet, so we'll skip that one. So we're on to the next checklist, starting engine on battery. So first item, turn on the strobes. And let's see what that looks like outside. There we go. Got the strobe lights. They don't have the red beacon going yet. I need to probably submit a case on that one too. That just comes on right away with the main ship's power. Let's hop back inside. Inertial separator is off. There's that switch down there. Ignition to auto. That's good up there. Voltage still 24.5 or better, and it is. Let's turn the aux BP on. And let's verify we have a CAS message for it, which we do. We dismiss that. Propeller area is clear. Timer. I normally would use the yoke for that, but we'll just start it here. And let's do the starter. Hold for 2. We hear it. Look for starter and ignition CAS messages flashing. We got them. Can dismiss that. Looking for oil pressure coming up. ITT is plenty cool, and we're over 13% NG. Move the throttle to low idle. And we'd like to see 30% NG by 30 seconds. Which we did. This is at a normal pace. This is very well modeled here. Now we're looking to get to 50% by 60 seconds. starter automatically cut out. And go over to flight idle. They have a really unique control down here you can see in the bottom right to deal with the H pattern of this aircraft. And right now it's showing that my throttle in the real world here on the sim is too far back. It needs to be up here in the middle. And it allows me to simulate beta in reverse in here, which is really cool, just using my throttle by pushing a button to go into this gate mode, get past the gate to go into beta in reverse. So, after startup, verify our oil pressure's up. Our NG's at 69%, roughly there. Turn on the inertial separator. Flip all these switches up. And we check the battery amps, which we can go on back to normal display mode here. The battery's almost fully charged already. We can turn on the AC and the bleeds. Test a tank swap here, so we're on the right tank currently. Push that, we should go to the left. It did. Cast messages as expected, and they all look correct. Headset's powered on if we need to. Alright, taxiing, we have the inertial separator on. We get on the ramp where we want to be, we get the weather, we check our flight instruments, we load a flight plan, we'd set the landing field elevation, which would normally pull from the flight plan on the system page. I don't think that's modeled out yet. Check our squawk for the transponder, which 1200 is fine. We would verify that our call sign is correct. That's not modeled here. Normally that'd be a field right under, at the bottom of the timer page. Flight controls free and correct. That's fine. Trim, so we can adjust those. We would normally check that the interrupt on the yoke works, and he's nicely modeled the sound of that motor or clutch there when you start and stop the wheel, which is really cool. So we'll set that up based on this window here, and that's fine for the sim. I usually would set it a little different for the real thing. Flaps are up. De-ice systems, I think the boots, let's see, they're not quite modeled yet. Yeah, they're not there, that's okay. We'll skip that one. We've feathered the prop twice. Let's try that out. Normally would just bring this down and make sure it stays kind of in the yellow, the low end. Give it a second or two. Come back. That timing seems pretty good. Oh, and look up here, you can see there's some exhaust blur, which I was actually noticing in the real plane on my flight yesterday, trying to find the airport. When you look through the exhaust, it's kind of fuzzy and hard to see. That's cool. Alright, back to feather one more time. And normal flight idle. Push the toga button on the side. And he's actually done synthetic vision here, which is not something I've played with in a flight sim before. It looks really cool. So we'll turn that on. Alright, cast messages are fine. Taxi light, parking brake off, and you would taxi out. We're already on the runway, so I'll go ahead with the lights that I want for that. And run the next checklist before takeoff. Parking brake's good. Ignition is already to auto. All those other switches are up over there. De-ice system we don't need. Inertial separator is on, and we're going to keep it on. We do want to think about ITT issues, especially at high altitude like this. Airport at Aspen, but should be okay. We'll watch it on takeoff. Trims are set. Environmental panel down here is good. All the switches are up where I want them. I have the AC on manual mode. Battery charge is less than 50 amps is down to 10. Standby alternator, let's see if that works. We should get a main generator CAS. We do. But the load did get picked up and he's got an S here for standby. That's right. We'll go back to main. And that cleared the CAS. LFE, I'm not going to worry about yet in this testing. Fuel quantity and balance looks good. Engine instruments are all alive and look good. That oil temperature looks a little too cold, but normally that would be probably around 80 degrees at this point, even at high altitude, maybe worse. CAS displays look correct. Transponder, we check the squawk. 1200 is still fine. Passenger table stowed. Autopilot set our heading and altitude. We'll just do straight ahead. And for our altitude, we'll just go to maybe 10 or so. Maybe a little higher with that terrain. We'll watch it as we go. Landing lights I already turned on. Flaps, we'll move those to takeoff. So we've selected it and it's indicating takeoff. Takeoff briefing. Perform that. We talk about what runway we're using, how much distance we need, which would probably be about 2,500 feet here today because we're kind of high. Distance available on this runway, what our initial departure procedure is, and what we would do in different emergency scenarios. Turn on the pitot heats. That clears those CAS messages. And then the Fat Flight mnemonic, which is flaps and trims, we check those in this box. Fuel, make sure we're on a good tank. Lights, it's up there, those are fine. Yaw damper would come after takeoff. And then the IT stands for inertial separator, which is on, and T for go around, or toga mode for go around set here. And that's fine. Normally this would say takeoff, not GA, because we're set it on the ground. Parking brake off, and let's do our takeoff. So I'm going to get off the checklist now, do the rest from memory. Take the chocks off. My rudder control is way too sensitive, so this will probably be a little squirrely, but let's try it out. Here we go. Go up to about 90% on the torque. We're watching ITT. Just getting pretty hot, but that is expected here. As we get a little bit of airspeed, we can do a little more. We're looking for 85 knots. Some interesting sounds of I guess the wheels coming up here. Alrighty. Bringing the gear up.
Pull up, pull up, pull up. Terrain ahead.
And
pull up.
We're looking
pull
for 115
up.
knots before we get the flaps out. There we go. And we put the yaw damper on, which it is already on. That shouldn't have been the case, so I need to file a bug on that one. And I usually keep the inertial separator on until we're about 5,000 AGL, so get up over these mountains here. Turn that off
Terrain
in case we have
ahead.
a bird strike.
Terrain ahead. Pull up. Terrain ahead.
Synthetic vision is showing a nice, helpful picture there.
Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead. Pull up. Pull up. Terrain ahead.
Oh, we got the autopilot going.
Terrain ahead.
I'm trying to change the heading, but I keep getting the zoom
Terrain
control.
ahead.
Alright, all that terrain ahead stuff isn't necessary, but I guess just another bug they're trying to figure out. turn the inertial separator off. Let's say we're high enough here. I'm backing the power back a bit myself just to make sure it doesn't over torque. As that separator turns off, it takes about 40 seconds. So, that was this testing session. I'm really excited about this model. It's got so much potential. You know, I was really nitpicky here doing the real checklist, some of which doesn't make a lot of sense in the sim, some of which would be nice to have here. But it's come a long way in just a few weeks I've started to test it, and I'm sure it's going to be completely amazing by the time it's shipping. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next video.